Ethiopia, did Turkish-supplied drones kill 57 people in Christian Orthodox Tigray? From Greek City Times. A drone strike in Ethiopia's Oriental Orthodox Christian majority Tigray region killed 56 people and injured 30, including children, in a camp for displaced people. Two aid workers told Reuters on Saturday, citing local authorities and eyewitness accounts. Military spokesman Colonel Getnet Adane and government spokesman Legesse Tulu did not immediately respond to requests for comment, and Prime Minister Abiy Ahmed's spokeswoman Billene Seyoum did not respond to a request for comment. The government has previously denied targeting civilians in the 40-month conflict with Tigrayan forces. The spokesman for the Tigray People's Liberation Front that has been fighting the central government, Getachew Reda, said in a tweet that another callous drone attack by Abiy Ahmed in an IDP camp in Gedebit has claimed the lives of 56 innocent civilians so far. The strike in the town of Gedebit, in the northwest of the region near the border with Eritrea, occurred late on Friday night, said the aid workers, who asked not to be named as they are not authorized to speak to the media. Earlier on Friday, the government had freed several opposition leaders from prison and said it would begin dialogue with political opponents in order to foster reconciliation. Read more. Both aid workers said the number of dead was confirmed by the local authorities. The aid workers sent Reuters pictures they said they had taken of the wounded in hospital, who included many children. One of the aid workers, who visited Shah Sahal General Hospital where the injured were brought for treatment, said the camp hosts many old women and children. They told me the bombs came at midnight. It was completely dark and they couldn't escape, the aid worker said. Ethiopian federal troops went to war with Tigrayan forces in November 2020 and have committed gross atrocities against the Oriental Orthodox population. After Ethiopia's embattled Prime Minister reversed a Tigrayan march on the capital that threatened to overthrow him, he credited the bravery of his troops. Ethiopia is proud of your unbelievable heroism, the jubilant leader, Abiy Ahmed, told his troops on the battlefront at Kombolcha on December the 6th. You were our confidence when we said Ethiopia would never lose. In reality, the reason for the reversal in Abiy's fortunes was hovering in the skies above, a fleet of combat drones, recently acquired from allies in the Persian Gulf region and elsewhere who are determined to keep him in power. Over the past 4 months, the United Arab Emirates, Turkey and Iran have quietly supplied Abiy with some of the latest armed drones, even as the United States and African governments were urging a ceasefire and peace talks, according to 2 Western diplomats who have been briefed on the crisis and spoke on condition of anonymity. At least 400,000 people are living in famine-like conditions, according to the United Nations, putting another dark mark on Turkey's extensive human rights breaching record.
Why are Abiy Ahmed's soldiers attacking religious heritage sites of Tigray, Ethiopia? In Ethiopia, it is customary for large crowds to gather on the last week of November at the country's holiest site, the Church of St. Mary of Zion in Aksum. Every year, followers of the ancient Ethiopian Orthodox faith, who constitute roughly 60% of the population, join each other to celebrate the presence of the Ark of the Covenant in what is one of Ethiopia's most important religious festivities. This November, however, the Church of St. Mary of Zion was crowded for a different reason. A week earlier, Ethiopian and Eritrean soldiers had arrived in Aksum as part of the federal government's war with the Tigray People's Liberation Front, TPLF. By November 28, 2 days before festivities would normally have begun, many people had gathered in the church to find refuge, worship, and protect what is believed to be the Ark of the Covenant from being stolen. According to a deacon at the church, soldiers burst into the church, dragging worshippers out and shooting at people as they tried to escape. The witness estimated that 800 people were massacred that weekend at the church and in the city. An Amnesty International report based on over 60 interviews described how, over an approximately 24-hour period on 28 to 29 November, Eritrean soldiers deliberately shot civilians on the street and carried out systematic house-to-house searches, extrajudicially executing men and boys. As well as attacking people, there is also evidence of soldiers engaging in widespread looting, including of religious heritage sites both in Aksum and more widely in Tigray. A recent report from the Europe External Programme with Africa describes how Eritrean troops climbed onto the 6th century Debrademo monastery and looted old manuscripts and treasures. Despite the information blackout, reports and images have also emerged of soldiers damaging many other important sites, from several ancient churches to the 7th century Wukro al-Najashi Mosque, one of the world's oldest and most important Islamic sites. Why would the Ethiopian authorities allow for the assault on sites that are holy not just for Tigrayans but for many across the country? The first possible reason is that it is part of a scorched earth policy. Everything is erased to the ground as avenging troops advance. However, this does not explain the destruction of difficult-to-access sites such as the Debrademo Monastery, which can only be reached by scaling 80-feet cliffs. Another explanation is the economic gain of selling stolen items, but this does not explain why buildings were destroyed after the looting. The most persuasive explanation is therefore perhaps that this strategy is aimed at humiliating and demoralizing the population to break the community's resolve and spirit. In its most extreme form, this is known in international law as cultural genocide. The intended effect is to erase people's attachment to the land, uprooting them not only physically, but psychologically. Destroying religious sites is a powerful instrument in this approach. This explanation would also be consistent with claims in a leaked U.S. report which suggests that Ethiopian officials and allied militia fighters are leading a systematic campaign of ethnic cleansing in Tigray. The document claims that Amhara militias are involved in an apparent campaign to force out the ethnic Tigrayan population under the cover of war. Hope in humanitarians. It is perfectly understandable that humanitarian actors focus their emergency responses on saving lives rather than saving heritage. There are 4.5 million people in the Tigray region who urgently need food aid. However, there needs to be a distinction between what is prioritized and what is recognized. Many of who were allegedly massacred in the Church of Zion were there to worship and protect their religious heritage. Simply seeing them as victims of ethnic violence is reductionist and does not help to capture the full spectrum of assaults on their multiple identities. Moreover, in supporting survivors and holding perpetrators accountable, it is essential to recognize the many ways in which people have been assaulted. The distinction of seeing humanitarians' jobs as saving lives and heritage experts' jobs as saving artifacts is problematic. Eyewitness evidence about who desecrated holy sites may be critical for bringing perpetrators to justice, and the restoration of holy sites can be crucial to rebuilding a community's sense of joy, pride, and belonging. It gives hope for what they will pass on to future generations. One hopes that the armed conflict in Ethiopia comes to an end soon and that both the people and sites that are dear to them are restored. Perhaps this November, the Sacred Church of Zion will commemorate the dead as well as seeing the return of one of Ethiopia's most significant religious festivities. However, this will only be possible if we recognize the importance of heritage sites both as a target in war and as a critical part of justice and restoration after it.